Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Nichiren's resolve in his own mission was firmly established. All the events of his life proved to him the truth of Buddha's prophecies concerning the messenger of the Tathagata in the latter days of the law. Hi friends, how are you? We're starting another chapter. We're getting close to the end of this book here, so most of what we're going to read, I don't know, he still has some quotes from Nichiren's writings in here, but, ooh, that's a big one. But we're going to be reading through a lot of the author's own insights, and they seem to agree, other than linguistically or rhetorically, they seem to agree with what we know of the facts of Nichiren's life. And I hope you're enjoying this series as it, I think, gives us context for our own practice. Nichiren was very much of the mind that he was our exemplar, that he had, through his own life, discovered, rediscovered, if you will, the simple practice prescribed by Shakyamuni thousands of years earlier for manifesting our Buddha nature, self-manifesting, self-realizing our Buddha-ness, yeah? While human, while in this samsaric time-space existence, yeah? All right. He continues that in the latter years, his thoughts turned more to the future of his doctrine and his country, and by extension the world. His serene delight among the mountains of Minobu was an earnest of the terrestrial paradise that should come in all the world. So the bucolic beauty, the emotional sustenance of life in all of its manifestations, Nichiren was experiencing in his body, in his life, and his surroundings. This, as Nichiren, we've read in his Gosho, stated, I apologize, my voice is still doing weird things, living every moment of his day in Myoho Renge Kyo. What could that be other than Buddha-ness, yeah? That deep appreciation and awe of just life, being, yes? And he was experiencing that at Minobu. And he thought the whole world should be this way. Not that the world would change, right? But the Buddha land is where? It's here. It's in the mind. In the latter years, his thoughts turned more and more to the future. His serene delight in Minobu should be the same anywhere in the world. Probably he offered meditations to Buddha for the fulfillment of this expectation, but he certainly did not lay much weight on any special form of meditation, much less on any ritual such as employed by the Buddhists of the time, right? These elaborate rituals of hand positions and watching the breath and all these many, many different contortions of human samsaric practice. That's all they are, is entertainments. Buddhism isn't about entertainment. It's about awakening. It's about instead being aware now, waking up to this grandeur, this precious moment-to-moment existence in everything. Equanimity, yeah? Flip that switch, in other words. For him, his life in silent retirement was the greatest of meditations on life, because he believed that the concentrated thought of a true Buddhist ruled the realm of truth, and that by his thought and desire the fulfillment would be hastened. Though thus living for the future, the present could not be excluded from his mind, right, as for us. In the autumn of the year in which Nichiren retired from the world, the Mongols invaded outlying islands in western Japan, devastating them and massacred the inhabitants. The invaders further succeeded in landing on the larger island of Kyushu, the seat of the government of western Japan, and for a while occupied that part of the country. Kublai Khan was making his presence felt and reminding the Japanese that their disarray and their constant infighting made them weak and easy prey, which Nichiren had pointed out many years, yeah? The people were in consternation, and the government appealed for help to Shinto and Buddhist deities. They're not deities if they're not Buddhists, if they're deities, by dedicating offerings and celebrating mysteries, Help us, help us. Let's pray for, I don't know. Nichiren watched the passing events with anxiety, but with a confident resolve. His anxiety was of a different nature from the apprehension of the people, yeah. He was sure that his country was destined to be a fountain of rewards and amazement for the whole world through all coming ages. But evidently he had to go through this horrible period in order to wake up. Nichiren saw that in his own life, didn't he? Yet the government and the people were actually rebels against the true practice of the Lotus, and had not repented or had not realized their own grave errors in persecuting the prophet, Nichiren the Bodhisattva, the messenger of Buddha. Therefore, he was no less convinced that Japan was to suffer still greater calamities at the hands of the Mongols. You brought this on yourself. And unless you change your mind, what can I do? All I can do is warn you. I have warned you. I've prepared you. You insist on doing it, you're going to put your hand in the fireplace. You're going to get burned. I told you. He could welcome the Mongol invaders as instruments of chastisement for the heinous errors of the nation, yet he could not harden his heart to the fate of his people in distress. It wasn't that he was callous about it, right? He felt deeply, that Buddhist compassion. It's like watching your own kid do something stupid. No, you don't. This will happen. Kid does it anyway. I wish you didn't have to learn that lesson in that way. Yeah, that's the lament of a parent, isn't it? Righteous indignation and yearning compassion were in conflict within him. He often expressed himself in words like the following, quote, "Behold now the danger impending from the fierce Mongols. When they occupy the imperial residence and massacre the people as they did in the Western Islands, you will undoubtedly ask help of Nichiren. But it will be then too late. Repent and be converted to the true resolve, the true practice, before the hour of the utmost disaster arrives." You stuck your hand in the fire. Now you have blisters all over your hands. All I can do is help you to heal. I can't take the blisters away. I told you. He even went so far as to say that the Mongols were the messengers of Buddha, sent for the chastisement of unresolved living in this country. But he did not curse his fellow countrymen and wish their ruin. Of course. Nor did he believe that Japan was doomed to such a fate. For example, in a letter addressed to a lady, he says, quote, "You would perhaps rejoice to see my prophetic warning fulfilled and the Mongols occupying this country, but such a sentiment benefits only the common herd and should not be cherished by my followers. Every faithful follower of the Lotus of Truth should know that he is living in a winter, but also that spring is sure to come after that winter." The author continues, "His thoughts concerning the threatening catastrophe seem to be somewhat conflicting, as they would. Though his course was clear, all the more reason to stay the course, to be that signpost when there is recovery. When your child finally comes to its senses, you need to be staying the course. You can't adopt a chastisement, right? Punish, punish, punish. The child has punished itself. Do you see the parental distance there? So the parent needs to maintain the core of reason so that when the child comes to its senses, it knows to come to the steady voice, attitude, commitment of the parent. Otherwise, the parent just becomes a competing child. We see this all the time in the modern world. Parents forget to be parents, and they become competitors to their own children. And then the children can cleverly assume the role of parent, even though they're absolutely unqualified, and the parent deteriorates into a mess. Doesn't know what to do. Well, you, the parent, like your child, need to grow up. Be a parent. So I'm not chastising you parents out there, but I know you've seen this. Maybe even in yourself at times, because samsara, yeah? All the more reason to appreciate your practice. Because when you chant Namo Myoho Renge Kyo and you resolve your mind to Buddha-ness, you develop your parent. No matter what your age, no matter if you have a child or not, we develop that parent. It's one of the three qualities of Buddha-ness, isn't it? To be a leader or sovereign, to be a parent, compassionate and understanding, but committed, resolved. And as a sovereign and a parent, you radiate what? Teaching. The teaching happens in those who capture that radiation, your bodhisattva life. And you can teach with words, but the teaching actually happens in the learner, right? Because we're all individual packets of sentient mind. He was a fervent patriot. He loved his country. But his country wasn't just a land called Nippon. It was the people. That's what makes a country. Yes, the landscape is beautiful. Minobu is beautiful. There's an appreciation for everything. And that is loved as well. But the compassion comes through living beings, sentient minds. He hoped to see, the nation he hoped to see was one completely purged from the errors of rejecting the truth. Just like any parent wants to see in their child, right? The Japanese nation reconstructed and transformed according to his own knowing, his own experience, his own ideal. While the actual nation was still false to Buddha and his philosophies. The prospective chastisement of the nation by a foreign invasion was something like a radical cure for cancer. Interesting. Like chemotherapy, right? Which is the introduction of very bad things. Chemotherapy is an assault on the body in the hopes of removing with it, as it kills, those cells that are cancerous. It's quite a radical maneuver. Desperate measures. He saw in the invaders the surgeons, but he never believed that the patient would succumb to the operation. Right? You have to have some conviction that you're going to make it through to the other side, as it were. The other end, get through the process to come out stronger. Scarred, but stronger. He cursed Japan, but exalted her at the same time, according to these two opposite points of view. Again, I hear the parent. Damn it, why do you insist on being so... Can't you see? Bang! Oh, now you see. Yeah, come here. We can share conversations about what you went through and how you might not do anything of that nature again. This explains the paradoxical character of his expressions in those days of great anxiety. The paradoxes were never, in his own mind, contradictions, but were conceived to be steps toward the fulfillment of his aim. What a lesson for you and I. Really, I could reread that as a daily mantra of sorts to remind ourselves that when everything goes to shit, it's okay. There's a lesson in it. There's something we're expiating. There's something in our karma that is being expressed that we need to look at closely. And we don't need to figure it out with our brains. We need to blast it with Buddha-ness. We need to chant and solidify our resolve, single-mindedly seeking Buddha-ness, so that whatever those energies are that are creating such upheaval in our lives are not just mollified, but actually converted, turned into a positive reinforcement for Buddha-ness into the future. Whatever it is, you don't need to understand every nitty-gritty of why did this happen to me or to my friend, my lover, my daughter, my son. It's acknowledge that it's happening and that you no more want to support that you want those energies to become supportive rather than unaffirming. With that kind of drive, instantiate Buddha-ness. And so this is the wrestling match that Nichiren is going through right here, watching Japan succumb to its own ignorance, while Japan has no idea that it's brought this on, so that it can come out the other end wiser, more open-minded, with a strong will to change, to alter that direction, or succumb to it. That would be horrible, right? So we don't want to succumb to it. We don't want to succumb to our difficulties. We need, one device I use all the time when it seems like you don't know which way to duck in life. Everything's happening. Yeah, I give up, right? Well, before you say you give up, go to your Butsudan and demand Buddha-ness. Nothing else works. Make this happen. Remain resolved that there is beyond this, and that it will be. And what I do, oftentimes, and people probably think I'm a maniac, when things just go awry, I'll tend to laugh. Whether it's internally and smiling or out loud. This is crazy. Look at all of this mess. Because the mess isn't you. It's coming through you, but it's being expressed like popping a pimple, right? Nobody likes that activity, but you need to get that pus out so that the skin can heal and become nice and clear again. During this crisis, especially in the year 1275, Nichiren wrote several essays on the future of Japan, explaining also his own attitude toward the perils. The most methodical of them is one titled Senji Sho, The Selection of the Time. Remember that Gosho? After reviewing the phases of Buddhist history since Buddha's death, he affirms again the conviction he had often expressed before that his time, this time, our time, was the most significant age in the propagation of Buddhism. Being the fated 500-year period in which the Buddha predicted a decisive conflict was to take place between the true Buddhism and its opponents. The persecutions heaped upon the prophet as well as the Bodhisattva. Let's just replace that, yeah? As well as the various calamities that befell the nation were the signs of the crisis when decision must be made between the truth and falsehood, between the Bodhisattva and his malignant opponents. To all this Nichiren had borne witness, and now the greatest of errors, the Mongol peril, heralded the final conflict to be followed by an amazing, or rather inevitable, conversion of the whole nation. In other words, the imminent peril was regarded as one of the preparatory steps to the establishment of Buddha-ness in Japan. In one passage in this essay, he writes, quote, "The Lord Shakya proclaimed to all celestial beings that when in the 500 years after his death, all the truths of Buddhism should be shrouded in darkness. The Bodhisattva, Jogyo, should be commissioned to save the most wicked of men who were degrading the truth, curing the hopeless lepers by the mysterious medicine of the adoration of the Lotus of perfect truth. Can this proclamation be a falsehood?" Of course, this is why he views things as it's words like prophecies in Buddhism don't really fit, because really Buddhism is like mathematics. I know, okay, maybe you don't like math, but my point is that it's an equation. You make this cause and this cause equals Buddha-ness. You make this cause and that cause, you miss Buddhism, Buddhahood, right? It's a simple equation. Just like the Four Noble Truths or the Noble Eightfold Path. That's all equations. Everything equals awakening, enlightenment. If you mess with the operators of the equation, how can you achieve Buddha-ness? It's that simple. It's not a prophecy. It's just a look, observe, witness, cause and effect, right? Nichiren continues in this translation. If this promise be not in vain, or be not vain, how can the rulers and the people of Japan remain in safety, who, being plunged in the whirlpool of strife and malice, have rebuked, reviled, struck, and banished the messenger of the Tathagata and his followers commissioned by Buddha to propagate the lotus of truth, bodhisattvas of the earth. When they hear me say this, people will say that it is a curse. Yet those who propagate the lotus of truth are indeed the parents of all men living in Japan, men and women. I, Nichiren, am the master and lord of the sovereign, as well as of all the Buddhists of other schools. Yeah, not all my kids are behaving. Some of my kids listen to me. Some of them are actually rebelling against me. They're still my children. Notwithstanding this, the rulers and the people treat us thus maliciously. How should the sun and the moon bless them by giving them light? Why should the earth not refuse to let them abide upon it? Could you imagine? That the magnetic fields of the earth would selectively pick those who are being bad humans and just let them drift off into space. That's quite a visual. Nichiren. Therefore, also, the Mongols are coming to chastise them. You invited this cataclysm. Even if all the soldiers from the 5 parts of India were called together and the mountain of the iron wheel were fortified, how could they succeed in repelling this invasion? It's not about might. It's not about power. It's not about politics. It's about the equation. You stuck your foot in the trap closed on your leg. No matter how much you holler or shout your indignities, the frickin' trap is on your leg. It is decreed that all inhabitants of Japan shall suffer from the invaders. Not decreed by any person, but decreed by their actions. Actions have consequences. Duh. Whether this comes to pass or not will prove whether or not Nichiren is the real propagator of the Lotus of Truth. Am I the bodhisattva that I'm living my life to embody, or am I just a loudmouth? Let's see. Further on, he says, quote, "See, presently it will not be long before the great Mongols will send their warships, myriads in number, and attack this country. Then the sovereign and the whole people will surely abandon all the Buddhist and Shinto sanctuaries they used to revere and join in crying, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. And with folded hands, see what I'm always saying? Folded hands. Not this. This is prayer. This is give me, please help me. This is, I know how this works. I am instantiating Buddha-ness. I have an expectation with great conviction and resolve that I can affect this in a life-affirming, the most life-affirming way. I know, not I wish, I know. Right? Namu. O Master Nichiren, save us, O Master Nichiren. Anyway. Then he reviews the history of his persecutions and the fulfillment of his former predictions to prove again that to him was given the mission to establish the Buddhist way, the true Buddhist methodology for self-enlightenment. Yes? The conclusion is, quote, the greatest of things is the establishment in Japan of this gateway of truth. What's the gateway? What's another word for the gateway of truth? The truth being Buddha-ness. What's the gateway? Gohonzon. It's a mental gateway right? Of experience, Buddha-ness, rather than samsara-ness. Do you see it? How could the country be safe, even for a day or an hour, if Shakyamuni, the Lord of the paradise of Ultra Peak, the Buddha land, with the Buddha Prabhutaratna, or Tahoe, of the realm of the treasure purity, the Myoho Renge-kyo, the treasure tower. Their manifestations filling the space in the 10 quarters, the bodhisattvas of the earth coming from the 1,000 worlds beneath, and the heavenly beings such as Brahma, Indra, the sun, the moon, and the four. See, the moon is a heavenly being. Isn't that interesting? And the 4 guardian kinds should withdraw from this country their protection and assistance, visible and invisible. In other words, all of your sensations about the magnificent forces within the engine of life, the universe. How could it all disappear? And isn't the Mongol invasion a threat to make all of that disappear? Collect your mind, instantiate your Buddha-ness, and revel in all of the energies of life. The author continues, all this, where are we time-wise? All this, especially the last sentence, was a curse indeed. Really? I don't see it as a curse. It was a reminder, a very stark reminder of what is at stake. Is your life going to be a miserable disarray of unorganized ducking? Or are you going to take the helm and drive this mother with success, compassion, love? Cursed by the nation which regards and offends the unique truth, quote unquote. This was Nichiren's attitude toward the actual Japan, the way it was behaving. He rather welcomed the Mongols coming to apply their rude surgery to the deep-seated disease of his nation, yet he had entire confidence in the future destiny of his country, for which, indeed, he himself had a grave responsibility. It's that conundrum of being a parent. As furious as you can be with the behaviors of your offspring, and I'll remind you, if you're not a parent, as a parent, and even if it's not maybe it's your younger brothers and sisters, you're still behaving as a parent, right? Or if you're a manager of several people at the place where you work, you have to be a parent. And as furious as you might be at the behavior of some of your children, quote unquote, you have to see in them their Buddha-ness, their potential. Much as it is maybe unrealized, and much as they're getting in the way of realizing it, you have to represent to them the way. How they come to it, it's their own karma. That doesn't mean you give up on them. Everyone, every sentient mind is Buddha-ness. How much they resist it, how much they act in their own demise, it's the expression of their potential karma and what they nurture. So you must indicate a different habitual nurturing. If they're to nurture certain things, let those things sway them toward Buddha-ness rather than against it, yeah? It's not an easy task. Sometimes it is. But that when it is, we're in danger of getting lazy, right? That's why we practice every day. To continue, for he was the messenger of Buddha, the Bodhisattva, commissioned to establish the center of the world's doctrine in Japan for the sake of the coming myriad years. The task, no less than rescuing the Lotus Sutra truth from obscurity, of awakening his countrymen rested solely upon his shoulders, and he would fail of his duty if the nation remained unresolved to the Lotus of Truth, the true practice of Buddhism, yeah? The intent of Shakyamuni. Although he saw in the coming Mongol invasion an agency working for his cause, the final burden of converting the nation was laid upon him. Because ultimately, if he was not stalwart as the constant, never mind the I told you so's, but let people say he told us so he wouldn't have to, and them coming to seek him out. This is what he wrote earlier. Oh, Nichiren, help us. Well, I've been trying, yeah? But it doesn't do any good to chastise him further. That's a tough call for a parent, yeah? Because a parent wants to go, yes! Do that in private. Don't let your children see it. Just be a compassionate parent. They're coming to you now. Don't spoil it. Let them revel in your kind waters. Yeah? It's hard. There's not very many manuals out there for parenting. Not that we would read them. He thus inseparably linked the threatening danger with his idea of the future of Japan, as well as with his own expiation. The remorseful expiation of his errors of not having thus far accomplished all that he had set forth to do with the unique truth. He took it personal, right? Just like a parent. When your child fails, and this is how you managers in businesses should be, when your employees fail, you should see that as a personal failure, not as something to punish. Which, I mean, look at our corporate world today. We'll go on a whole nother train of thought if I go there. All right, time to wrap this up. It's an interesting recap. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop there. The sense of error lay heavy upon Nichiren's mind in view of the approaching danger. Okay. And then he's going to move into more of Nichiren's writings. So before we get started on that, and this becomes another hour-long video, I'm going to make this one a little bit shorter. Give you a break. And we'll continue in the next. Thank you. Thank you for listening, for being here. Thank you mostly for your practice. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Yeah? Like, subscribe. It's a little bit of bodhisattva to make the YouTube gods, algorithms, serve us, grow this Sangha. Don't forget to subscribe. It's so important for this channel and our practice, our Sangha, right? Patrons, again, I can't fail, to thank you profoundly for your support. And I will see you in the next one. Okay? Take care of your health. Be kind to yourself. Bye for now. Myo.